117. In this episode, I want to talk about habits. Welcome to podcast episode 117. Okay, in this episode, I want to talk about habits. Okay, habit as in what? If you're adults, basically this is for adults and learning new movements like Kendo, for example. That's a habit. And if you want to correct your Kendo, usually you have to, your instructor point at the bad habits of yours, and then you have to correct the bad habits, right? But it's very, very hard to correct bad habits. So I've been reading books. I'm going to introduce some those books. This is another one. And one is, now I haven't read this all, but I'm just started reading. This is called, hang on a minute, Making Habits, Breaking Habits. And this is why we do things, why we don't, and how to make any change stick. That's written by Jeremy Dean. And also, I have read a book called Smart Talk for Achieving Your Potential. It's a Lou Tice, written by Lou Tice, Louis or Lou, I don't know, but Lou Tice. So after I read that book, and I'm just start reading Making Habits by Jeremy Dean. I want to share what I learned, and what I learned. Plus, I've been telling my students. So, by the way, in this so far this June, in June, we have 20 more members at patreons.com. Thank you for supporting, and I really enjoy you being a member of this Kindle, my website. And please don't hesitate to contact me with questions, comments, and suggestions. So that will make this site better, and I will study more and share that with you. And also, I want to go around and learn more from those senseis, so I can share those with you too. So, I'm really happy that I have 20 more members, and yeah, patreons.com, and you can see Patreon members only videos and on a Kindle for adults and stuff like that. Okay, anyway, now, so making habits and losing. So one, if you have never done, it's very common. Beginners are like, they used to do some other martial arts, or they still do some other martial arts, and then they come and learn Kendo. Nothing wrong with it. You do some other martial arts, and then you want to do Kendo. But you have these old habits, okay, good or bad. Sometimes it doesn't work for Kendo, but other times it works. Okay, and sometimes you need to really completely remove old habits out of your system, and you have to learn new Kendo movements. Now, here's interesting study. It's conducted by University of Scranton. I'm going to make sure I write it down. Scranton study, and it's about New Year resolution, and 213 subjects were participated in this study. And New Year's resolution. So, as some people wanted to lose weight, some people wanted to quit smoking, and about 38% of the participants wanted to lose weight, and also 30% of participants wanted to quit smoking. And then this study, researchers followed these subjects up until 1 year, I think, or 6 months. Well, anyway, the drop rate was, okay, after 1 month, about 45% people already dropped out of their resolution. Okay, so 55 people are sticking to their New Year resolutions. I think that's pretty good. And after 6 months, 60% dropped out. Only 40% of the subjects were sticking to their new resolution. Of course, it's, they researchers just followed up. So those subjects could have lied, and I don't know if they lied or not. But considering that possibility, maybe more of them dropped out. I don't know, but 60% after 6 months, those people quit New Year resolution. We're all familiar with that, right? So it's very difficult to learn or remove bad habits and learn. Basically, if you want to learn new things, you probably sometimes, most likely, most of the time, remove bad habits. So what I've been thinking, what I've been telling my students was, you have to know what you're doing first. Otherwise, you don't know how to fix it. So you have to know what you're doing first. And to do so, you have to be aware of what you're doing first. And then interesting thing is this the book by Dean. Was it Dean? Sorry, I'm not really good at memorizing. Yeah, Mr. Dean, in Making Habits and Breaking Habits. He also said you have to be aware of what you're doing. And apparently there's a term in psychology. It's called reperception. And what that means is that that allows you to observe your automatic, what's that? Oh, automatic habits. Ah, I cannot read my handwriting. Well, anyway, so but what it does basically is allow you to observe what you're doing and see yourself in that context. So you are actually aware of your habits and bad or good, what you're doing. Basically, you can just kind of focus what you're doing. So kind of it's close to, he called it mindfulness as well. Mindfulness, the term wise, it is quite new to me. I've heard that last year or something. Recently, I heard the term mindfulness. And then when I heard that, oh, it's kind of mushing. Its concept is so mindfulness. So you should be aware of what you're doing, basically, right? I don't know if the concept is right. I think that's the concept of mindfulness. You're very aware of what you're doing. Your mind is everywhere. And mushin is translated as, what do you call it? Empty mind. But it's not empty. Takuan Osho, who wrote Immobile Mind, I think. Fudochi, I'll write it down. Fudochi Shinmyodoku. In that book, I think it was in that book, or probably interpretation of that book, maybe. Mushin is not really empty. Mushin is like floating mind. So your mind, your focus is not, you're not focusing only one thing. For example, when you're fighting against your opponent, if you focus on let's say shinai all the time, your whole mind is focusing on the shinai. So you're not really watching your opponent's movement, right? You have to see your opponent as a whole, and you can probably see behind your opponent as well. So you have to look all over your opponent, right? That's we call enzan no metsuke, right? So when I heard mindfulness is it's a mushin, you just it's empty. It's a really Zen concept or very Asian concept. It's mu means full as well. It's not completely nothing in there because it's like your it's almost same as fullness. Mind doesn't stay in not frozen. It doesn't stay in one spot. It goes moving. Like you have to when you drive, you have to focus on everything. Pedestrian, other cars, signs, traffic lights. So you have to pay attention to everything, right? Not at the same time, maybe, but you really have to pay attention to everything. If your mind is stick to one thing, you can't see other signs or other things you have to be paying attention to. So I think that's really what you have to do to yourself. What you are doing, or like when I'm doing moving this, I'm doing that. You have to focus on what you are doing. So in Kendo as well, if you don't know your left foot is like we call it a horse kick. Horse kick. Left foot is jumping up like this. Oh, sorry about the mess. Hopping too much. If you don't know you're doing that, you can't fix it. That's first, right? If you don't know what you're doing, you can't fix it. You don't even know you're doing it right or wrong. So you got to realize what you're doing. And then two, and then you have to come up with solution. How can you fix it? And that's, senseis will point out what you're doing, right? Well, you're doing that. And you now realize, oh, I didn't know I was doing that. Okay, now you know. So what's next? Next is how you can prevent it from happening. And so what's the common mistake? Well, anyway, like if and then you have to realize when you are doing that, if you are doing it all the time, maybe you have to, before you strike, you have to tell yourself, okay, let's analyze what happens when I'm striking. First, you have to do that. And then maybe you have to videotape yourself. All right. And you got to realize, oh man, I'm doing that. That's very important. Self-awareness. If you don't believe you're doing it, probably you won't fix it. So you got to see it. And then you have to analyze the situation you're doing. When are you doing it? When you're doing close, chikama, or when you're far, or just all the time. If you're doing it all the time, you really have to be ready and strike and not to do it. Okay. It is very important. Habits you can't correct habits. You don't expect habits just gone. You really have to intend. In the book, Mr. Dean's book, it says you have to intend to fix it, right? So you really want to fix it. You really need to intend. So when you do that, you have to analyze, okay, I'll do this. So maybe if I'm hopping my left foot up after I strike man, okay, what about if I keep my left foot longer? Okay, so keep the weight on my left foot longer and then strike. And what happens then? And is it because how I always run like that because you're hopping like that, or maybe you're trying to strike men too fast or from the top, and then hold the body wants to go this way, go leaning forward. That's why maybe your left foot comes up. You have to analyze yourself, and it's easy in old school ways. Someone just whack your left foot with a bokto or something, and that will fix you right away. Bang, like that. It's old school. Maybe when I was a kid, since it was doing that to us, so about 30 years ago, maybe. But probably you don't want to do that. If you want to, that's fine, I think. But I don't. It's a quick fix, very quick. But I don't recommend it because you might hurt someone, other people, or yourself, and then that's very opposite from improving if you get hurt or hurt others like that. So make sure you start analyze when it happens, how it happens. Otherwise, your sensei can only point out what you're doing wrong, and probably they can suggest you what you should be doing, or what, to try this, try that. But after all, you are the one controlling your body. So you have to control your body. And then you have to control your body, you have to break your movements and then analyze when that happens, how that happens, why do you think it's happening? Is it mental, or is it more related to your body structure? If so, you really it's everything is different from person to person. So you really have to make sure first you realize it, and then you talk to your body. And I want to one thing. I've been talking too much, 17 minutes now. I want to talk a little bit about this smart talk. You always have to realize you have to rehearse in your head. This has been helpful. Probably you're familiar with visualization. You visualize your ideal movements. So when I like when I say when I was a kid, I wasn't. My teachers didn't teach me techniques, so I have to steal their techniques. So I watch them and learn what they do, and then that's cool. I want to do that. And then as you watch them over and over, and then play, you record that movement, into your brain. It's a hardware here, into your brain, and then you play it over and over and in your head. Of course, you have to go, without shinai or whatever at home. You gotta start doing that. Your complete copy of the movement. Okay. And then you do in your training. So you're already rehearsing in your head, and you've been doing that. Okay. You've been doing this. Okay. Rehearse. You can already do it. Okay. You do it. Good. You do it so you can do it. That's the way you should apply. Okay, you don't want to have a doubt in yourself. If you have a doubt, you kind of if you've done it, okay, it's a proof, and you have confident. All right, but you cannot have that confidence until you actually do it. So how long are you going to wait until you be confident? Right, you rehearse whatever you do. Rehearsing is to achieve your goal, right? You got to rehearse, and sometimes you make a mistake. All right, even though let's say you're a pianist, right? You rehearse so you can show the perfect performance at the real life. But like this life too, I rehearse a little bit in my head, but when it goes, maybe some things don't work, as like I wrote a note, I couldn't read my handwriting, and I go, oh no, I cannot read. Some things don't work as you planned, but you rehearse in your head over and over and over, so you're confident. Okay, and then just okay, I did rehearsal, all right, as much as I can in my head. Okay, nothing to afraid of, nothing to be afraid of. All right, so that's how you should be doing. You have ideal humikomi, for example, should be doing this. Okay, all right. You have to have that model like close to you. All right. If you're athletic and you want to strike very far, maybe you have to imagine that kind of strike. If you're not, but if you just go nice and balanced, if you're an adult, you're nice and balanced, solid Kendo, and you go that. You imagine that. Okay, if you cannot imagine, how can you create that movement? You have to imagine, and rehearse that. Okay, and then you do it at the dojo. Okay, and then you have to probably you have to ask your teacher or instructor or your mate, say, oh, can you watch me? I'm working on this, so can you watch if I'm doing this right? All right, okay, man. And then you do it and get feedback. Okay, I couldn't do it. Or video yourself, right? And then you watch yourself and then analyze. Oh, I couldn't do it. Oh, this was my problem. This is ideal strike, so I need to fix this and that. This was good. Okay, and then let sensei watch you too, and then get feedback. Oh, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. So you can kind of move towards ideal movement. Okay, it's very important. You can't just get teaching and then do it and forget about it. You have to rehearse in your head. You can do it anywhere. At work, probably at work, while you're working, you don't want to think Kendo, but when you have time, always when you have time, you can rehearse in your head. Rehearse in your head. Just do a little movement. Okay. So that's adults should work on, because we don't have time to do Kendo at dojo all the time, like Japanese people or Japanese Kendo like students. They do that every day. They have access to the dojo anytime. They train every day, 2 3 hours. I don't have that kind of time. I don't have place to train. But here I can train anytime I want. So you do that. Get rehearse in your head and try to contact, okay, with your legs. Okay, this is how I move. So to accomplish that, I should be moving like this. All right. So okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to try this at the dojo. Done. All right, and rehearse that again and again and again. So that makes you to apply, to improve quicker if you don't have time, I think. Okay. Of course, I'm doing this. I have to tell you, all right, it's not like 1 hour job. One day, it takes maybe longer, like 1 month, 2 months, 3 months to achieve one goal. But you have to keep working at it. Okay, that's a part of training. That's why Kendo is a lifetime study. You can't just fix one day, 2 days, you're good to go. It won't work like that. So you have to be patient. That's a part of your training. Be patient with yourself. Okay, allow you to have time, allow you to train in your head, and then work step by step, break your movements into pieces, and then work at the dojo. Okay. For the podcast listeners, thank you for listening, and for the members at patreon.com, I'm going to talk a little more about how we should be working. on making, keeping good habits and removing bad habits. Okay. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next podcast. Okay. Now, so I pretty much talked a lot, everything about how you should be working, but I haven't talked about is you, like told you. I think I told you that karate people can deliver